The next few poses will be done in a standing position. Please move slowly and at your own pace. Keep the sturdy chair nearby for balance if needed. If you find that I'm talking faster than you are moving, please take your time and do fewer repetitions. Take a nice deep inhale and exhale. Place the feet about hips-width apart and grounded on the floor. Lift the toes and spread them nice and wide, and feel the navel pull gently in towards the spine. Push the toes into the floor and lean forward just a little bit. Feel the muscles that keep you steady. Lean back just a little bit and feel the toes come up. Feel the muscles that keep you steady in this position. Now push all four corners of the feet into the floor. Notice the steadiness of mountain pose. Notice how the steadiness of mountain pose feels. On the next inhale, roll the shoulders towards the ears, back and down so the shoulders are slightly open. Let the palms rest open to the side. Inhale and let the arms rise with the palms facing up. Exhale, bend at the elbows and allow the hands to come down the center line. Sink into the knees just a little. Repeat this again. Inhale, lift the arms with the palms facing up. Allow the hands and face to be relaxed. Continue with this movement at your own pace. Breathe as you move and try to coordinate the breath with the movement. On the next breath, lift the arms back over the head. Fingertips point in, palms face up. Imagine that you have candles in the palms of your hands and you do not want to spill them. Turn the fingertips so they face behind you. The palms remain up. Turn the fingertips to the side and then to the front like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again, towards one another, and then forwards like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again. Let's do this rotation one more time. After the second rotation, allow the hands to cascade down by the side and let them rest. Pause for one slow inhale and exhale. One more breath. Inhale, exhale. This next exercise is excellent for strengthening the spine and gently stretching the muscles of the back, front, and sides. Attempt to make the movement easeful and gentle. We will do these movements with various arm positions. The first arm position is the easiest. Please be sure to stay with the one that feels best for your body. We will demonstrate them all. Take the right hand to the waist and then the left. Roll the shoulders open. And on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale to the center. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale back to the center. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down. And on the next inhale, gently pull the navel towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin and feel a sense of lengthening through the front of the body. On the next exhale, begin to fold gently forward. It does not have to be all the way. Bend the knees slightly. Inhale and rise back to a standing position. Open the left arm to the side. Keep the elbow bent. Leave the right hand on the waist. Inhale. Exhale, lean slightly to the right, and then return back to the center. Bring the left hand down to the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. Exhale and lengthen to the left. Return to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Gently pull the navel in towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward halfway. Inhale back to standing. Open the left arm again. Inhale, and on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale and return back to the center. Place the left hand on the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale and return back to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Lengthen through the front of the body. Slightly pull the shoulder blades together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward. Knees slightly bent. Inhale and return to standing in mountain pose. Pause for a moment. Inhale and exhale. For this warrior sequence, attempt to keep the movements gentle and relaxed. If you notice that you are struggling, move the feet closer together. Lower the arms or make the movements smaller. This pose is great for strengthening the legs, respiration, and opening the shoulders. Step the left foot forward just a few feet. The back foot points in at a 45-degree angle. The front knee bends and the hips face front if possible. Inhale, open the arms and bend at the elbows. On the exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards each other. Inhale, open the arms and push the heart softly forwards. Relax the shoulders. Exhale, bring the arms together. Inhale, open the arms to where you feel comfortable. Exhale, relax the arms inwards. Inhale, open and expand. Exhale, contract. Inhale, exhale. Bring the hands back down by the side, return to mountain pose. One breath here. Inhale, exhale. Step the right foot forward. Take a moment, there's no rush. Ground the back foot into the floor. Bend the front knee. When you are ready, open the arms. Inhale. Exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards one another. Inhale, open the arms. This is a relaxed opening in the chest. Exhale, bring the hands and arms towards one another. Inhale, repeat again, creating spaciousness with a full inhale. Exhale, contract and relax the arms slightly. 2 more times at your own pace. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. Let the hands rest down by the side and return back to mountain pose. Pause here for a few breaths.
Welcome back to the 26th online episode of Peacetime, hosted every Sunday morning by Peace Point with myself, Ven.Nicholas, Thanissaro, live streaming from Dhammakaya International Meditation Center in Azusa, California. Today's session will be about an hour and 10 minutes long and will consist of a 25-minute talk and 20 minutes of meditation, finishing up with 25 minutes of conclusion and news updates. Last time you saw me, we looked at patience and obstinacy. With the Dhamma talk today, we will start on more Buddhist topics, introducing Buddhism and Buddhists by looking in particular at the shortcomings of textbook Buddhism, metaphysics beyond the naked eye, and whether it is really necessary to call yourself a Buddhist. As usual, this session, I would encourage you to send in any questions you have by emailing me at peacetime.questions@gmail.com so that I can have a shot at answering your questions next time round. With this session, we embark on a new series of 10 sessions that I used to call Buddhist concepts. Over the years, it has morphed into Living Buddhism, as I have started to teach it in more academic audiences through my work at Claremont School of Theology. In the early years of the new millennium, when this series of sessions was written, the trends of secularization and then post-secularism in Western society have led to a resurgence of interest in the study of Buddhism, which seems to appeal to the Western mind through its lack of dogma, emphasis on practice rather than belief, and commitment to non-violence. Some Californians, such as Trudy Goodman, the founder of Inside LA, say California is rife with stealth Buddhism, especially with the introduction of mindfulness, systematically reaching out to crypto-Buddhists, in other words, secret sympathizers of the Buddha, although the word crypto-Buddhist might be a misnomer since many Californians pay lip service to liking Buddhism without much idea about what being a Buddhist really entails. A better word for the phenomenon might be pseudo-Buddhist. If pseudo-Buddhism really exists while avoiding essentialism, shouldn't it be possible to describe what academically might be meant by authentic Buddhism? If authentic Buddhism were to exist, wouldn't it be possible to extend the definition to all the countries of the world rather than just seeing it through the lens of Western Buddhism? Ironically, the majority of books aimed at the entry-level student of Buddhism have often just exoticized Buddhism, with the complaint often heard, "The more I read on Buddhism, the more confused I become." Of course, a complete picture of Buddhism can never be gleaned merely by reading about it, but surely a good book would provide a beginner with more answers than questions. The problem with understanding the complete picture of Buddhism was foreseen by the Buddha when he applied a much more ancient parable of blind men defining an elephant in the Udana, where different blind men come to different conclusions about what an elephant is. The man who touches the trunk concludes that an elephant is like a snake. The man who touches the leg concludes that an elephant is like a tree trunk. The man who touches the ears concludes that an elephant is like a sheath of leather, and the man who touches the tail concludes that it's rather like a furry mouse. Depending on which part of the elephant they come in contact with, all fail to see the whole. The same can be said of the writers of Buddhist studies textbooks. Textbook Buddhism may be an inevitable byproduct of the world religion's approach to teaching major traditions on a global scale. The life story of the Buddha and the text used to explain his Dharma occupy central places in the modern expression of textbook Buddhism. According to Professors Andreasen and Lewis in their 2014 book, Textbook Gods, textbook Buddhism represents a type of power text that depicts some aspects of the tradition as important, while omitting whatever the author views as less important. The finished product may not differ much from books written by practitioners or polemicists from particular Buddhist traditions, who also like to prescribe what is genuine Buddhism and what is just a cultural accretion. With so much information available, the main problem for Buddhist educators is that it is becoming increasingly difficult, if not impossible, to convey a complete picture of Buddhism in any single textbook. The content of any textbook of Buddhism is of necessity based on an editorial decision about what makes Buddhism distinctive and influential in the world or history. Some texts focus more on the Indian origins of Buddhism, while others stress the cultural variations of the tradition across the globe. Some textbooks deal more with philosophy and doctrinal teachings, while others emphasize ritual and material culture. Some textbooks include generous excerpts from primary texts, while others rely on narrative summaries or ethnographic descriptions. Textbooks are obviously also distinguished in part by the aims of their authors and the pedagogical tools used to achieve them. Some books work to build a vocabulary for talking about Buddhism. Others want to impart a comprehensive picture of basic facts related to Buddhism or convey some acquaintance with original Buddhist texts, such as Strong's 2002 textbook, The Experience of Buddhism, or Donald S. Lopez Jr.'s 2004 book, Buddhist Scriptures, since Buddhist studies as a subject relies heavily on reading and interpreting Buddhist texts. The main problem for textbook Buddhism is whether to stress Buddhism's coherence or its diversity. The problem with emphasizing coherence is the essentialization of Buddhism, a portrait limited by assuming certain basic shared features or trying to explain how a key set of traditions have become diverse through reworking by cultures and communities in different lands. Recognizing and demarcating a common core for Buddhism easily leads to essentialist views of the religion and overshadows the particular ideas and expressions that make Buddhism look different in various cultural and historical settings. Although Rupert Gethin's 1998 textbook, The Foundations of Buddhism, follows a cohesive approach that tends to downplay the diversity between Buddhist schools, it is still very popular as an introductory text and is used by 40% of introductory Buddhist courses. On the other hand, simply remarking on the internal diversity of Buddhism can become a rote exercise in listing different forms and features without attempting to explain their significance or account for their discontinuities. Where diversity is acknowledged, generally there is a need to acknowledge Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana schools of Buddhism. A few texts such as Cantwell's 2010 Buddhism the Basics and Alexander Wynn's 2014 Buddhism An Introduction acknowledge the difficulties even in categorizing Buddhist diversity in this way, since the categories refer to different things about Buddhism that might not directly concern practice, such as textual transmission, monastic lineage, ideological positions, or esoteric movements, as these emerge in different contexts. It is perhaps more valid to stress that the connections between early Buddhism on one hand and Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana on the other should be stated up front that it is an oversimplification to conflate Theravada with early Buddhism or Hinayana. Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana did not simply originate in India and then spread to other lands as more or less fully realized schools. It is more accurate instead to remark how Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana represent distinct conceptualizations of Buddhist identities that took shape largely outside of India proper. The inevitable conclusion of textbooks emphasizing diversity is that the subject of study becomes Buddhisms rather than Buddhism, as reflected in the title of Strong's 2015 text, Buddhisms, an Introduction. A more classic overview that starts with the life of the Buddha and proceeds with the spread of the Buddhist teachings to disciples and then different areas of the world in chronological sequence, but treating the three schools of Buddhism as more different than alike, is found in Robinson and et al.'s 2005 text, Buddhist Religions, a Historical Introduction. Some textbooks, such as Beschert and Gombrich's 1995 text, The World of Buddhism, and Kevin Trainor's 2004 text, Buddhism, an Illustrated Guide, put particular emphasis on the material culture of Buddhism and may appear like coffee table books, with full-color spreads of Buddhist achievements and influence in material history. A more utilitarian approach to a Buddhist text, which comes with a lot of pedagogical tools and reference materials, and which compares Buddhism with other Western religious concepts and philosophical ideas, is Prebisch and Keown's 2010 text, Introducing Buddhism. Similarly, Kathy Cantwell's 2010 text, Buddhism the Basics, is often preferred because of its brevity, but still tackles moral dilemmas relevant to Buddhists such as meat-eating, abortion, women's participation in Buddhism, political activism, laicization, and globalization. The bulk of that textbook deals with the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, utilizing familiar emic categories to organize the work. Most Pali language-based, but balancing the early Buddhism with reflections on Buddhist modernist values, is Peter Harvey's 2013 text, An Introduction to Buddhism, Teachings, History, and Practice, written from the perspective of the interests and concerns of an insider to the tradition, addressing the interests of students prone to explore questions related to how one should live one's life. But the author tends to rely on his own translation for terms such as merit or the Four Noble Truths. More narrative approaches include Mitchell and Jacoby's 2014 text, The Spirituality of Buddhism, and Todd Lewis's 2014 text, Stories of Buddhists, which emphasizes contemporary expressions of Buddhism, namely what Buddhists think and feel about practicing their religion. Similarly, an interpretive analysis is found in Wynn's 2014 text, Buddhism, an Introduction, which I have already mentioned. So, with such a huge choice of Buddhist textbooks already on the market, what can I possibly offer that has not already been covered? My own approach to the study of Buddhism in these sessions started out as rather a preachy Buddhist lecture series, and over the years I have gradually adapted the materials to my audience. Without abandoning the primary sources completely, I have tried to paint a cohesive picture of Buddhism, although not to the exclusion of modern and diverse readings, since I credit most of you viewers with enough broad-mindedness to handle divergent views and complexity. I would hope that Buddhism properly might be compared with studying a living butterfly rather than one that has been pinned in a display cabinet. What I would like to do with this series is to de-school students from the artificial textbook framework for the study of Buddhism and return in a more phenomenological, in other words, awe and wonder approach to the subject. Some Buddhists might shy away from trying to prescribe any sort of spiritual roadmap. In some Zen temples, for example, they would shun any attempt to give rules or even guidelines, using the ehipassiko approach to insist that the spirit of Buddhism requires that things be discovered by each practitioner for themselves. However, as we shall see, it is not necessary for those new to Buddhism to have to reinvent the wheel. It is equally true that having a spiritual roadmap won't give the practitioner preconceived ideas about what they will discover as a part of their spiritual journey. It does remain the case that aspects of Buddhism may belong to different levels of description. The more mundane aspects of Buddhism, such as conduct and basic instruction on spiritual practice, can validly be listed and prescribed to beginners by a teacher. Even when the Buddha was alive, he instructed newcomers in a dogmatic way on such mundane practices. However, transcendental knowledge can never be communicated in a satisfactory way from one person to another. It can only be understood beyond doubt by an individual through first-hand experience, not by thinking or speculating on such issues, but by insightful vision arising in meditation. This applies especially to the 4 transcendental subjects mentioned in the Achintita Sutta, which includes the powers of the Buddha or Buddha Visaya, which means the range of powers a Buddha develops as a result of becoming a Buddha. Secondly, the powers developed through meditation or Jnana Visaya, the outcome or the retribution of a person's actions, which means the precise working out of the results of karmic action, or Karma Vipaka, and philosophical analysis of the nature of the world, such as conjecture about the origin of the world or Loka Cinta. The reason why the Buddha advised against wasting time on conjecture about such transcendental topics is that it would be likely to bring madness or at least vexation to those who obsess about them. Ironically, most of the subjects this series deals with touch on those unfathomable subjects. But in balance, examining these transcendental subjects brings more benefit than harm, because although you viewers are unlikely to be at the level of enlightenment, ready to examine these subjects through your own level of meditational insight, it is still useful for budding practitioners to have a spiritual roadmap, at least to have some idea of your spiritual direction of travel. If a traveler is on a mountain road shrouded in fog with no idea which way to go and unable to see their destination, it will only be when the fog clears that they can see the landscape laid out before them and know which road to take towards their destination. What I hope to do by giving the student a Buddhist bird's eye view of the direction of spiritual travel is to help the practitioner to know the correct route to the long-term destination and to save everyone from wasting time searching for salvation in the wrong place. Additionally, a spiritual roadmap can help to whet the practitioner's appetite to search further and work on themselves until they can encounter these phenomena through their own experience of meditation. To make sense of potentially conflicting explanations of Buddhism and to help a practitioner recognize the supramundane when they eventually encounter it for themselves. Finally, on a slightly different note, I would like to clarify that despite various power-grabbing attempts, Buddhism is not a unified worldwide organization like, for example, the Catholic Church, with definite authority, but rather it is a loose collective with tolerance for internal diversity and usually lacking in violent sectarianism. The manifest aims of this series are to help viewers, irrespective of their religious or cultural background, to deploy ethnological and interpretive hermeneutics to deconstruct oversimplified stereotypes of Buddhism, accurately compare and contrast Buddhist worldviews with that of other faith traditions, demonstrate an ability to analyze how Buddhists perceive ethical connections are made between their choices and quality of life, to describe the variety of mindfulness practices in Buddhism and their potential outcomes, describe Buddhist metaphysics, and analyze its possible compatibility or otherwise with the current secular positivist worldview. Although there are reprehensible historic aspects of Buddhists' behavior, even down to the present day, my hope is that the series will leave the viewer on balance with a positive attitude towards this religion. Additionally, latent aims for this series, more applicable to those with Buddhist sympathies, or who are looking for more personal answers from Buddhism rather than just merely ticking Buddhism off their list of multicultural experiences, include being able to fit meditation into the context of Buddhist practice, to stimulate your curiosity to study original Buddhist scriptural sources, or at least their translations, to put Buddhist metaphysics in the context of post-secular knowledge, while gaining comparative and personal perspective into Buddhist worldview. The series will also be useful for chaplains who want to understand Buddhists to whom they must pastor, educate, or care, but equally for entry-level Buddhists or spiritual searchers who want to find out more beyond the vagaries of popular Buddhism. The choice made with this series of sessions about what Buddhism offers to the world is mostly its principles and practices that are able to inspire awe and wonder, while offering a means to answer eternal questions, which is probably the reason any Buddhist would want to practice this religion, not out of admiration of academics' ability to provide a compelling textual exegesis. The title of this series, Living Buddhism, is thus deliberately ambiguous, referring to the intention of the series to show how Buddhism works as a lived religion rather than as a philosophy, and by bringing Buddhism to life. This series sets out to make an academic but emic, in other words, inside-out, contribution to the student's understanding of Buddhism, based on the premises that to be valid, Buddhists need to recognize their own religion in academic descriptions. This seemingly innocuous precondition is generally overlooked by so-called Buddhist experts, who leave actual Buddhists feeling alienated, insulted, or downright stupid. By way of explanation, many esteemed scholars of Buddhism become more famous for their philology and their objectivity rather than their sympathy for the subject matter. As Wilfred Cantwell Smith claimed in his 1981 book, Towards a World Theology, in a way that empowers grassroots practitioners, no statement about Buddhist doctrine should be considered valid unless Buddhists can respond, yes, that is what we hold. Especially at a time when post-colonial perspectives are revising the formerly Eurocentric monoliths of social science, the voice of the Buddhist practitioner needs to be heard in academia. This series expresses a Buddhist standpoint most in keeping with the Theravada tradition, or at least the foundations from early Buddhism before the divergence of Theravada and Mahayana, although differences of opinion are pointed out where unresolved discussion of issues remains between the different schools. This series tries to go beyond the limits of many introductory textbooks on Buddhism that, with due respect, seem to merely revisit the Four Noble Truths and the three universal characteristics in the author's own words, and often fail to distinguish Buddhism from nihilism or fatalism. Aspects of Buddhism I won't spend much time on in this series are the historical origins of Buddhism, holy writing, or contemporary Buddhism. Similar to Rupert Gethin's book, The Foundations of Buddhism, this series concentrates on early Buddhism to give a cohesive picture, with only minimal considerations given to the diverse schools of Buddhism originating after that time. It is assumed that students viewing this series will have more familiarity with basic Buddhist concepts such as the life of the Buddha, the Noble Eightfold Path, and the Four Noble Truths. Anyone lacking this foundation of knowledge can quickly catch up by reading a brief overview of these topics in Walpola Rahula's book, written in 1959, on What the Buddha Taught, which I showed with the textbooks earlier on. If you're not familiar with the abbreviations for the Buddhist scriptures connected with the primary sources of early Buddhism, you will find that I follow the conventions found in the Pali English Dictionary. The main scriptural language I will refer to is Pali, and some idea of this language and its literature is available from the Wikipedia entry for Pali, which in this particular case is recognized by scholars as being quite an authoritative entry. For those unfamiliar with the use of diacritics in Pali, the Buddhist resource known as Access to Insight provides advice on coping with diacritics. I have therefore provided the Pali equivalents of most of the keywords to allow cross-referencing with other Buddhist texts. The point of reading primary sources, even in translation, is to counteract the non-scholastic or polemic voice in Buddhism that tends to pontificate about feelings about what is imagined that Buddhism says, instead of aspects that have been, which actually have a historical basis. The series consists of about 10 sessions. The series starts by putting Buddhism in context for the first 3 sessions, examining what it means to be Buddhist and Buddhist historicity. Karma and Buddhist epistemology is examined in the following 4 sessions, with the logic of karma, how Buddhists accumulate wholesomeness, how Buddhists avoid unwholesomeness, and meditation techniques by which Buddhists purify the mind. The Buddhist approaches to the eternal questions are examined in the latter part of the series, with the topics of death and dying, origins before birth into the human world, how Buddhists pursue perfections, and the 3 refuges of Buddhism in the final session. So today, before we go further to look at what it means to be a Buddhist, let's take the opportunity to settle ourselves for 20 minutes of meditation. So if you'd like to find a comfortable sitting position for yourself now, as you listen to my guidance. So let's close our eyes in order to meditate together. As we close our eyes softly and gently, we let our eyelids close drowsily. We allow our upper and lower eyelashes barely to touch one another, without squeezing the eyelids any further. We breathe deeply to ourselves. Then we let all parts of our body relax further. No part of our body should be under tension or stress. We allow all the muscles to become more and more relaxed and soft, starting from the muscles around the face, down to the neck, shoulders, both arms, both hands, and all the way to our fingertips. We should now feel that they are all tension-free. Moving on down, we let our chest and our back become more relaxed, together with both legs and thighs, down to our feet and our toes. Let's remain with this sense of lightness in our entire body for a few moments together. Similarly, we allow our mind to become free of all worries and concerns. allowing the mind to become more and more relaxed, more neutral, more comfortable, and more independent from whatever is happening in the outside world. Almost as if we were withdrawing from the world outside. Our attention only gets caught up in the outside world because we forget to turn our attention inward, to enjoy inner peace, a true gift we deserve to give ourselves. The way to obtain this gift is as simple as bringing the mind back from wandering in the outside world to focus instead inside our body. Imagine that your body is just an empty structure made of a thin outline with no bone, no muscle, no organs. Nothing remains inside the body but an empty space. And for a moment, slowly internalize the awareness of the mind and let it stay still, softly and gently within the empty space. Do this slowly and softly. There's no need for us to rush at all. Let the feeling become soft and still, somewhere inside the abdomen. Or if you feel more comfortable somewhere else in the body, then that will also work just as well. Let the awareness of the mind stay at this place inside ourselves for the time being. Now the mind is staying still at the center. Let it be like a tiny feather floating down from the sky and finally touching upon a still water surface without disturbing the calmness of the water's surface. Let's maintain this soft awareness of the mind inside the body, comfortably and continuously. We may visualize the image of an object we see every day, like the sun, the full moon, or even a shining star. Whatever we feel is the most comfortable with. Let the image stay in the mind naturally, so nothing else will have the chance to interrupt. Stay with the image in comfort and without worrying about the passing time. If the visualization leads to discomfort, we can begin again at any time. Whenever distractions appear, we can easily recommence our visualization, doing it again and again, in comfort and without any impatience. Beside an image, we can repeat a mantra quietly in the mind, such as the words Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, where Samma means the proper way, and Arahang refers to the state of having no mental impurity, the cause of negativity in everyday life. Repeating Samma Arahang means the proper way to purify the mind, that finally brings forth the state of absolute purity, which is all that we long for. So let's repeat Samma Arahang quietly and continuously, feeling the voice vibrating and expanding from the center of the body. Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, over and over again, so that the mind can settle on the image and absorb the sound of the mantra to dissipate any thoughts from our mind. Once we practice this every single day, we may be surprised that even a beginner like us can keep the mind still for ever lengthening moments by practicing every day. The process of centering will become as natural to us as breathing. No one needs to think when they breathe, and in the same way we can free the mind from all mental defilements and their negative energy. Our mind will become pure and crystal clear. The purer mind will connect with the source of pure energy inside, which will safeguard us against harmful elements such as dangers and sicknesses that surround us. All our thought, speech, and action will come from a place of integrity. This is what the world needs at the moment. As a result, we have an important part to play in protecting the world. A stream of pure energy from the pure mind will radiate across the entire planet, extending protection in every place. So let's maintain our earnest practice amid the pure energy that keeps building up inside by repeating the mantra Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, over and over again, as we sit for meditation for a few more moments in silence. And once the mind has absorbed the source of pure energy, imagine that the energy radiates outwards in all directions. Gently visualize the pure energy taking the form of a crystal sphere, growing larger to cover our entire body, reaching out to our whole family, our neighborhood, and everyone in the world, no matter who they are. We radiate and emanate a positive intention with a growing pure energy full of love and compassion toward all. For those with suffering, may they be free from sadness and pain. For those with happiness, may they be happier still. Imagine that we also emanate a positive intention to everybody in the country, neighboring countries, the whole continent, the entire globe and beyond. Wishing everyone, everywhere, be well and happy, dwelling in peace. Even in the darkest night, the starlight can shine through. Even troubled times can have a silver lining. Even times of crisis bring forth resilience and growth. Even when things around us have gone awry, yet our mind can re-engage with happiness through the practice of meditation. So may all human lives be filled with empathy toward one another, free from stress and anxiety, free from worry and irritation, free from sickness and danger. We share this peaceful energy for the benefit of our ancestors, family members, and friends, whether they are still with us or who have already passed. May they all feel cleansed by hope and joy, while being sheltered against sadness, sickness, sorrow, and danger. May all sentient beings be free from distress. May the growing stream of pure energy dispel any harmful elements from the bodies of all sentient beings on the planet, as if the whole earth were being refined and turned pure and crystal clear. Let only purity and quality remain without any virus to infect our human bodies, protecting against sickness and physical health problems, and even the equivalent mental viruses that manipulate the human minds with greed, hatred, and delusion, disrupting our unity and incessantly driving us into conflict and war. But we are now leading the world into a new era of integrity that emerges from the pure energy, with freedom from harm and aggression. May this pure energy protect the world from all physical and mental impurities, as we sit and make wishes for ourselves or others for a few more moments, for the last few moments of our meditation together in silence. พุทธานุปาเวนะสัพพธัมมานุปาเวนะสัพพสังฆานุปาเวนะสัทธาโสธีภะวันตุเท So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for today, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, and slowly try changing to a more comfortable position and gently finish your practice. In this session, we are trying to deconstruct what might be meant by the terms Buddhist and Buddhism. Some describe Buddhism as a religion because it fulfills a role which is normally the domain of religion in other cultures. Others insist that it is not a religion at all because it doesn't involve a belief system. It tends to depend more on practice, so they describe it instead as a lifestyle. However, if it were just a lifestyle, Buddhists would have no beliefs, just a series of codes of conduct. In reality, there are a series of beliefs and attitudes unique to Buddhism, a philosophy and metaphysics which are undeniably part and parcel of Buddhism. Buddhism does tend to have certain outlooks on the world, some of which are similar to or different from those of other religions. Some have therefore called Buddhism a philosophy. Does Buddhism have an ethical or philosophical standpoint on world issues, or is it just a religion of laissez-faire? Some are of the opinion that Buddhism is so liberal that anything at all can be included in it, the so-called tenet of going with the flow. Although this may have arisen out of confusion with Taoism. To clear up some of the confusion, I will compare and contrast Buddhism in broad brushstrokes with humanism, otherwise known as secular positivism, and Judeo-Christian or Abrahamic or monotheistic worldview, at least the ones following mainstream theology. Before making the comparison, you might want to give some thought to whether, with its incredible degree of internal diversity, Buddhism would be better considered as multiple facets of a religion, in other words, Buddhisms, as it has been characterized in the strong textbook Buddhisms, an Introduction, which I mentioned earlier, which cited the multiplicity of Buddhist traditions represented at Lumbini, the birthplace of the Buddha in Nepal. Or would a better approach be to regard Buddhism as diverse beneath a higher order of unity, similar to the paper by William Yarian in 2011 called Big Tent Buddhism, Searching for Common Ground Among Western and Asian Buddhisms, which was published online but characterizes the various traditions of Buddhism as being like multiple exhibition stands of Buddhist groups under one big tent that unifies the whole. Buddhism and humanism or secular positivism would agree that everyone needs to make the most of their life for themselves and for the rest of the human race. Both Buddhism and humanism would agree that sin and guilt are not constructive emotions. Even if a person has done something wrong in their past, they should start afresh and take better responsibility for their own life moving forward. Buddhism and humanism would agree that it is immoral to wait for supernatural powers or deities to act in one's place, but rather that we need to take the initiative, especially to stop wars, crimes, and brutality. Lastly, Buddhism and humanism would concur that the universe is self-existing and non-created, and that the underlying nature of human beings is that of virtue rather than sin. Buddhism, Judeo-Christian religions, and humanism would all agree that religion serves the personal and social needs of people who share the same worldview. Buddhism would also agree that it may be worth sacrificing immediate personal pleasure for long-term goals. Contrary to the views of some commentators, such as Stephen Batchelor, Buddhism generally acknowledges the need for some degree of belief. Although Buddhism is a religion of cause and effect, some of the causes and effects it talks about go beyond what can be seen with the naked eye. So Buddhism demands a certain element of faith. But the sort of faith Buddhists emphasize does not generally mean blind faith. It requires something more akin to an informed assumption, of a sort similar to the assumption that when you jump out of bed in the morning, that the floorboards will support your weight, or that your next car journey won't end in tragedy. Most of the aspects of living Buddhism dealt with in this series won't go out on a limb any more than the sort of phenomena that you already trust in your everyday lives. However, it must be conceded that for certain things described in this series, there is simply not enough empirical evidence to satisfy a dyed-in-the-wool skeptic. For the best reassurance I can give for aspects that fail the test of common sense is the proviso that if you meditate deeply enough, you can theoretically verify all the things described here to your own satisfaction. If a person is a complete skeptic, it can be a barrier to their spiritual learning. Some people, like famously Oscar Wilde, are so skeptical that if someone claimed that Japan existed, they would declare it fake news, unless they were shown first-hand evidence. If they had never been there, they might regard Japan's existence as an elaborate conspiracy theory. The only way to convince such a skeptic would be to take them to Japan. But even that proof depends on fulfilling certain conditions. The skeptic would need an appropriate vehicle to take them there, knowledge of the correct route, enough resources in pocket to pay for the journey, and enough illumination to see Japan clearly. By the same token, if evidence for supernatural phenomena in Buddhism were required, certain conditions would also need to be fulfilled before a skeptic could deny them outright. Instead of an appropriate vehicle, the skeptic would need to attain a sufficiently robust meditational state of mind to support insight vision. Instead of the correct route, the skeptic would need to know where to focus the mind. Instead of having enough resources in the skeptic's pocket, they need to have enough positivity of good deeds in their mind to propel them to their destination. And instead of brightness to illuminate their destination, they would need sufficient inner illumination of mind. Thus, skepticism has its place, but there are times when questioning is useful and times when it can be more beneficial to give things the benefit of the doubt. In practice, the borderlines shared between Buddhism and other religions and worldviews are to some degree porous. There's a piece of research I published in 2012 concerning the attitude differences between adolescents belonging to different religions. The Venn diagram on the slide is a graphic comparison of Buddhist values that are potentially exclusive to Buddhists and those that overlap with non-Buddhists, almost like a value map. Aspects of Buddhism that you might think only Buddhists would be interested in, such as valuing a calm mind, the law of karma, compassion to animals, looking after parents in old age, or helping the poor and needy, were actually shared by many adolescents who were not Buddhists. Other values like abstinence from alcohol, belief in impermanence and ultimate emptiness of the world, the worth of meditation, nirvana, friendship, sangha, offering candles and incense to the Buddha, and the benefit of ordination matched up more exclusively with Buddhists. The second Venn diagram shows how Buddhist values overlap with non-Buddhist values. The slide shows how conceptually difficult it is to identify exclusively Buddhist values. It would seem that Buddhism has fuzzy boundaries, which may indicate Buddhist identity as being many-layered, a perspective that would take the understanding of Buddhist values beyond the essentialisms of comparative religion. Subtracting the values shared by the Dharmic religions of the second Venn diagram from the Buddhist values of the first Venn diagram leaves offering flowers and incense, emptiness, impermanence, nirvana, Sangha Day, and ordination as a starting place for exclusively Buddhist values. In my own research, I went on to isolate 24 key attitudes statistically that do seem to match the attitude footprint that characterizes Buddhist worldview, which includes having an affinity for training the mind through prayer and meditation, having a calm mind, encouraging people to be friends, supporting the poor and needy, ordination as monks or nuns, Buddhist stories, looking after parents in old age, the Eightfold Path, offering food or money to monks, respecting those worthy of respect, offering flowers and incense to the Buddha, and sharing with others. Buddhists were also more likely to consider understanding to be more important than belief, that nirvana is the ultimate peace, that happiness is largely subjective, that monastic ordination brings benefit to the world, and that good deeds will bring good results to the doer. Lastly, Buddhists were more likely to avoid drinking alcohol or killing any living thing. With proviso about not always having empirical proof, it can be asserted that, despite similarities with humanism and other religions, there are some connections that Buddhists make which are hard to find in any other religious or secular worldview. The most unique of these are connections that can be traced back to what happens in the human mind. Buddhists see that the mind is the place from which all phenomena stem, even external phenomena. The opening verse of the Buddhist scripture called the Dhammapada states, "The mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-wrought. If, with an impure mind, a person speaks or acts, suffering follows them like the wheel that follows the foot of an ox. If, with a pure mind, a person speaks or acts, happiness follows them like their never-departing shadow." This is not to say that the world is a figment of the imagination or that all phenomena are subjective, although later schools of Buddhism, such as the Yogacara of the 4th and 5th century CE, did actually propose a consciousness-only philosophy echoed in the later philosophy of George Berkeley. So, making the connection that the mind is a starting point for all things that affects our lives and the world explains why Buddhists say that meditation is at the heart of practice. This is because meditation deals directly with the quality of the mind and many aspects of suffering that the individual does have some control over. The primacy of the mind gives rise to 3 connections unique to Buddhism, namely the mind-environment connection, the mind-conduct connection, and the mind-coincidence connection. Let's look at each one of these in more detail. Buddhists believe that not only does the environment affect the quality of the mind, but the connection can work in reverse. For example, in ancient India, if there was ever a drought, citizens would perform chanting, meditate, spread loving kindness, give alms, or keep the precepts, as seen in the Guru Dhammachataka. When they did this, usually within the space of 7 days, the rain would fall. Nowadays, although people might be increasingly unified about climate change, angry or violent protests would not be considered an effective way to change the climate. The Buddhist way to get to the root of the problem of the environment would be to start by giving priority to eradicating defilements from the mind. Once we start working on our mind, it is as if we are working with the environment in microcosm, where our underlying mind is pure and virtuous, but is sullied by impurities which we call defilements. The defilements tend to fall into 3 major groups: greed, hatred, and delusion, which are like the primary colors that, when mixed together in various combinations, can produce the full spectrum of unwholesome intentions and expressions of these. These defilements are not part of the human mind, but they affect the way a person's mind works, making their intentions bad instead of noble. Buddhists thus tend to see that the pollution of the mind through defilements is contiguous with the pollution of our lives, with problems of pollution of the natural environment with poisons. Similarly, where it is claimed that the quality of the environment undermines the quality of people's lives and minds, Buddhists would more likely see the causality as running in the opposite direction, with the quality of the mind dictating the quality of lives and the environment. To give a more tangible example, the mind-environment link is like the palpable difference in vibe between a space used regularly for worship as compared with a den used for drinking or gambling. A connection can, however, be made on a deeper level than merely the illegal dumping behavior of people with undisciplined minds. And one branch of engaged Buddhism in the present day has applied Buddhist logic to ecological and environmental concerns, and there's a whole book written about this by Tucker and Williams. A second unique facet of Buddhist belief is the Buddhist emphasis on working with the mind, or intentionality as the basis of morality. The more defilements present in a person's mind, the more latent potential they have to succumb to unwholesome actions, such as killing, stealing, committing adultery, drinking alcohol, or unwholesome speech, lying, swearing, malicious gossip, idle chatter, and unwholesome thoughts, greed, hatred, and delusion. If, on the contrary, a person's mind can become free of defilements, they will have less tendency to produce unwholesome deeds, words, and thoughts, and on the contrary, they will produce only unwholesome deeds, words, and actions. Deeds, words, and thoughts. Without an effort to uplift the quality of the mind, mental impurities get projected into the world outside as unwholesome behaviors that impact on other people in the world. Such an interpretation of causality would lead Buddhists, instead of locking bad people away in cells to make them guilty of their wrongdoing, would be to work with them where possible through rehabilitation to mend the things in their minds that made them want to break the law in the first place. The third facet of unique Buddhist outlook concerns the karmic connection between action and retribution. Action and reaction through karma is not strictly unique to Buddhism, but Buddhism does have a particular way of leveraging karma as a means to break free of the cycle of rebirth. On an intuitive level, the causality of karma can be recognized in life where an opportunity comes your way that you had been hoping for but had not arranged yourself. An oft-quoted example of positive fruits of karma amongst Californians is finding a parking space. C.G. Jung terms such occurrences as synchronicity. Such coincidences strike us as coming from a place beyond what we would expect by pure chance. Often we are left with a feeling that our lives have been guided by some unexplained force or providence. The experience induces a feeling of mystery and excitement, and as if there is another side of life yet to be discovered. Some other process operating behind the scenes of our lives. In a couple of sessions' time, we will offer some of the possible Buddhist explanations for such phenomena through the logic of karma. Given the emphasis on attitude and worldview, the whole idea that Buddhist identity doesn't just mean learning meditation was described by Spencer and Draper in a 2018 article called Introducing the Sort of Buddhist. Also, the phenomenon of hybrid religious identity was highlighted by Duane Bidwell in his 2018 book, When One Religion Isn't Enough, as particularly relevant to Buddhists. The meaning of the word Buddhist derives from the word Buddha, which doesn't just mean a particular historic person, but describes a state of being which is joyful and awakened. What Buddhists define as a sense of joy and awakening, in fact, very democratically, is already latent in every person. Thus, when you talk about a Buddhist, you talk about a person who epitomizes, idealizes, or is trying to discover these qualities within themselves, rather than subscribing to a particular package of beliefs or belonging to a temple congregation. The word Buddhist may, according to Armand's book, The British Discovery of Buddhism, be a relatively modern conception, at least Victorian, and in practice, a person may choose not to label themselves as a Buddhist, considering themselves perhaps merely as someone working to eradicate defilements or someone working on themselves, and may regard this quest as merely a part of their personality rather than a religious label. Buddhists who are self-identifiers, which is what social scientists call people who call themselves a Buddhist, may do so because they find it personally useful to ask themselves a question in situations of conscience: what ought I to do as a Buddhist in this situation? In my experimental explorations of Buddhist identity, I have found that being a Buddhist, especially when defined by attitudes, is more of a continuum than an all-or-nothing phenomenon. At a certain level of confidence in Buddhist worldview, an individual will start to identify as a Buddhist. The way Buddhist identity is interpreted may even vary from country to country or group to group, for example, as Thai or Theravada, and the layer of the individual where being Buddhist is filtered through individual experience as people make Buddhism their own. In conclusion, what we've looked at today is the shortcomings of textbook Buddhism, metaphysics beyond the naked eye, and what it means to be a Buddhist. What we should have learned from this is that there is a lot more that needs to be learned about Buddhism that you can never find in a Buddhist studies textbook. This series will try to make up for what is missing from those academic textbooks in terms of awe and wonder, and tackling the eternal questions. Also, we have seen that Buddhism has similarities and differences with other secular and religious traditions, and some of the unique features that go beyond the naked eye involve metaphysical concepts. Whether you consider yourself a Buddhist or not is not the important thing, because in any case it's always a work in progress. The important thing to ask is, what can I learn from this tradition that will boost my own ability to improve and purify my own body, speech, and mind? In the next session, we will start to examine some of the Buddhist unique worldview connections, starting with a connection between the mind and the environment, and similar to other religions that you might be more familiar with, it starts with a creation story. But for today, let me finish up with a quick mention about temple support and a news update about the availability of meditation teaching in English. For those of you who like to visit the temple in Azusa to bring offerings, please be informed that there is a new site for temple offering at the car parking lot next to the main temple building between 10 and 11 a.m. each day. If you have trouble with the passcode on the gate or wish to visit at a different time, please call Jenny on 562-716-2961. There will be a monk on standby in PPE to receive the offering and give a short blessing for visitors. English-speaking monks will be on duty on Wednesdays and Saturdays. A short ceremony for 5 precepts, meditation and a blessing are given on the weekends starting at 10:45 a.m. Needless to say, the whole temple would like to rejoice in the merits of all continuing to take the opportunity to support the temple in this way. Meditation is particularly valuable in this COVID era to cope with social distancing. In this respect, here at the temple, although there are still no face-to-face teaching sessions for the interim, you can continue to access Dhamma teachings in English at the YouTube channel called Peace Point Meditation or the Facebook page of Peace Point Meditation. For aficionados of Zoom meetings, another way you can access Peace Point content is to join Zoom meeting ID 926-2908-8736. The meeting passcode is 072. but bear in mind there is no way to pause or replay the media on Zoom for those of you trying to take notes. For those who've been following my talks, you may be interested to subscribe to a YouTube channel which I've set up in my own name, which you can find by searching for Ven.Nicholas Thanissaro on YouTube, where I have uploaded more than 100 clips of meditations, Dhamma talks, funeral homages, talks for children, and so forth. Meanwhile, there are a few changes to the 2021 schedule from Peace Point. Every Sunday morning, you have now got me with live material and archive material on alternating Sundays. Venerable Sopon now appears every Thursday evening. Meanwhile, Peace Breaks from Peace Point are broadcast every Tuesday and Wednesday between 7 and 7:30 p.m. There's a silent meditation broadcast each Friday between 7 and 8 p.m. For the benefit of families listening in, there's also a special show for children in English, known as Shining Stars, that goes out at the new time of 6 to 6:30 p.m. every Monday evening, with bedtime stories and a meditation short enough to keep the attention of our younger listeners. Outside of the live streams and on-demand programming, there's also the updated MindGem app, which you can download for free, allowing you to listen to meditation and Dharma talks in English on your cell phone, even when you are offline. So this session, we've looked at the topic of Buddhism and Buddhists. For my next live session online with you, which will, fingers crossed, be a week on Sunday morning, we'll be moving on to look at something along the lines of Buddhist historicity. For good measure, I would like to remind viewers that even better than posting a thank you or great talk or sadhu in the broadcast comments, you can email your questions about meditation or what you have heard in the lecture to the email address that you can see spelled out in the slide, and I will do my best to answer these on my next session. In the meantime, try to stay healthy, avoid recklessness or complacency in the face of the virus, maintain a positive mood, speak only positive words, forgive others, extend good wishes to others, and meditate daily. Hopefully, as a result of today's session, you will now be able to see through the shortcomings of textbook Buddhism and will be better able to recognize elements of Buddhist worldview and understand why some people choose to call themselves Buddhists. So for today, this is me, Ven.Nicholas Thanissaro, signing off for this session. So long, folks, and stay safe.